there, I am Pops, and welcome to another review. This is a film called Lagaan. It is from 2001. It's one that has been, so incredibly recommended over and over and over again. It's an interesting film, and really, I can understand not only why it got an Oscar nomination, but it's kind of a game changer, and I want to kind of go through some of those reasons why. Amir Khan is a way bigger star than I realized. Again, I'm very new. I apologize in advance for mispronouncing things or speaking incorrectly about Indian cinema. This is a Bollywood film from 2001. It was a very big hit, but it's also Amir Khan's first film under his production banner. A year-long production that was just filled with, there's so many stories. They did a documentary about it, right? So the director at one point has a slip disc and he's on bed rest. So imagine he's laying there looking at monitors, still working. That's crazy. There's nowhere to put the crew because they filmed in Bhuj, which is a place very remote in the middle of nowhere, and there's nowhere to put everyone, right? So they had to build a place and modify things so these people can have a place to stay. And they, of course, you have everything over the course of a year as far as cold temperatures, but the heat, they had to stay in the shade and stay hydrated. I mean, it's crazy. And then to know that it's such a good story, and it almost is a stigma by calling it a sports film because it's actually more like see, I don't know because they treat it as though the character Bhuvan is like a real character, and I don't know if it is legit or not, like it is a historical element or not, because it's almost like it's done as a biopic and a person, because the film ends with a comment about his name is lost in history kind of thing. But it's like that type of drama. It just has to center around sports, which was cool because I had to learn. I don't understand cricket, don't watch cricket, nothing, and it was kind of cool to learn a little bit about it. So anyway, it starts in 1893. The British occupation, British control. We're in this very remote village called Champaner, and basically the Brits are the Brits are really kind of like reduced to faceless, interchangeable elites, and then this one guy, Captain Andrew Russell, who, by the way, is Paul Blackthorne, who is known for being in the CW's Arrow. So that was kind of cool, and he brings it in this movie. There are some scenes that are really, really good. He plays off Amir Khan really, really well. Basically, he's just a jerk. He's on a hunting thing, and Amir's his character's name is Bhuvan, and he's like pro animal, so he's like throwing a rock so the animals move, so that when they're on their shooting exhibition, they miss. But then he gets caught. There's some love interest stuff here between Russell's sister Elizabeth and Bhuvan, and it really starts off pretty slow for a while. It's a lot of character development and a lot of back and forth about this bet that comes into play. So reality is this: life in Champaner is awful. They're ravaged by a drought. Things are very limited in what they can do. Everyone is at their wits' end in frustration. There's a situation with taxation there. And what had happened is under Russell, some taxation was expiring. Some agreements had expired. So he sits down with the local king, and he basically just tries to humiliate and subjugate him with basically asking him to eat a piece of meat because he's a vegetarian. It will violate his code of ethics and violate his faith. And then so basically Russell now is demanding double tax. Now, people don't have money for the original tax, let alone double tax, right? There's still no rain. And the first song is about there's these rain clouds that come far away, and then they don't actually drop any rain. So everyone is even more demoralized than they were before. Anyway, so Bhuvan gets some stuff caught up into this visit to try to go talk to the king, and they're playing cricket. And then ultimately, he's the one that's put on the spot because of this interaction they had previously. And Russell makes this bet that they won't have to pay taxes. He kind of ramps it up and baits Bhuvan into taking the bait of, tell you what, let's do a cricket match. If you win, no taxes for several years, or you lose, you pay triple tax, which means they all have to leave, sell everything. They're going to die, whatever. Like everything is over, right? It's a very extreme situation, right? So then it becomes like and you have all sorts of characters that have been briefly interacted with. So like there's a mute drummer. There, there's like, kind of like a shaman, kind of a guy that has like like I guess the love interest. Her name is Guri. Has some prophetic abilities, allegedly, those kinds of things. So anyway, there's people that also are mad. Like there's local chiefs that are mad that this deal is taking place because it affects them as well. They go to the king, and the king is like, "Deal's done, man. You guys got to figure it out." So it is fun seeing how this comes about with each interaction, and how Buvan is really a very messianic, Christ-like figure, to use our terminology, and bring about interactions to get people on the team, identifying their strengths to bring them in. So you have someone who uses a sling, so therefore he's great at throwing. Another person is great at chasing. He's a chicken farmer, so therefore he's great at catching things and grabbing things, these kinds of things. So very practical skills that have application in the athletic sports themselves. So so I mentioned Elizabeth, which is Russell's sister. She has a very strong affinity for the village. She has had like a crash course in trying to learn the language through it after having a translator. Guri is the love interest, but she's very jealous of the white woman, basically. The prejudice and the comments are kind of on both sides in a lot of ways, but obviously when you're the oppressor and the oppressee, this is kind of norm in history, especially back in 1893. But I love the twist of the British government, these faceless, bureaucratic military people, calling Russell like, dude, what have you done? You're not allowed to make some bet like this with the locals. We need that tax revenue. So if you lose, you're paying the money, and I'm shipping you off to the African desert, man. And this opens the door to other tribes and other groups and other villages going like, all right, well, I'm going to challenge you to a racehorse, or I'm going to challenge you to this. So it's like, that was a really cool twist that I didn't kind of think about. And I was just kind of along for the ride of them building up this team and all those elements. So I really liked that part of the story. I thought that was really one of the best parts. So anyway, so when Elizabeth shows up, you have more conflict because people don't want to be around her. But then there's other people who are also like, they think it's like a sign and it's a good thing. There's a spot where when Russell finds out that Elizabeth, his sister's doing that and helping the villagers, he gets so angry, but the way he plays it is very subtle, and his cheek twitches. He does this facial twitch thing, which I think is great. Anyway, the person that tells him, he basically puts him back in with the villagers as like a spy, and that comes out to play later on. So that's where we go through this first part of the film, and you have different characters that kind of come into play for different reasons. Like there's a character named Diva. He comes in. He is like a, beaten down, hates the British. He'll do whatever he has to do to fight back, right? You have other characters. Laga, who is one of those that's very, very important to the story as well. We'll get to him in a minute. And Guri has to kind of like have her own meltdown. She has to kind of run away because basically, Buvan is not really committed to marrying her. There are great lines and jokes about that, or at least making light of this about what he's looking for, and then anyway, it leads to a song which I thought was good. We'll get to the music at the end and give you my thoughts on the music. Anyway, so you have the English that practice and the village practice, and by the time you get to the actual game day, because there's montages, there's music, there's things like that. But you're literally, the movie is really, really long. And it's about an hour and 20 minutes left. So it's almost like well over half the movie to get to that point before you get to the game. And then basically the last half of the movie, it's like, well, it's 80 minutes. So probably 65, 70 minutes of that's probably the game. What I didn't understand is obviously cricket takes so long to play. They do these things, and then it's going to be like, okay, end of the day. And then they stop playing the next day. So the game actually takes over the course of about 3 days, if I got it right. So it starts off where the players really have a hard time dealing with the Brits at first. They have to be kind of corrected a couple times, but then they start getting, their wind behind their back to kind of get the hang of this. Now they also have a player who has he's crippled. He has a bum arm, but when he throws the ball, it has like this crazy spin on it. It's like a baseball player who's able to have this incredible break on like a split fingered fastball or something. Like it's this incredible thing that nobody can hit. But when they start the game and they bring him out, it's not spinning, it's not working. So they're getting really behind really fast. They're getting exhausted. So at the end of the first day, they're really, really behind. There's comments made about, we're going to probably have 600 points and those kinds of things. And what happens that night is I mentioned that spy, Laga. And during that night, there's some notes, there's some conversations that had taken place, but Elizabeth shows up and says, yeah, Laga's working for my brother. And he confesses, he pleads for mercy because he loved Guri and runs off. But, Muvon's the one that intercedes. Like he continues to do what's right for his people and all these players, his villagers, people he barely knows, people he doesn't really like. And really elevates his character. Aamir Khan really plays pretty straight the whole thing. I don't think he has any sort of like amazing performance or scene that stands out, but he's very, very good and believable in the role that he's in. It's not real cheeky or cheesy or anything like that. As I've brought up in maybe some other films that even though I've enjoyed, I've said there are moments, it doesn't really get that way with him. Anyway, so the team struggles again, but then Cochra's spin comes back on his breaking ball, basically, right? He's in the field. He picks up the ball. When he throws it back, it like completely breaks. They're like, aha. So they put him in, and the other team, the Brits, have no chance. They're completely, they're mowing down players like one after another. And once they get rid of Russell out, because he has like 100-point game, basically, right? A century. The Brits are up like 322, right? So they have 322 instead of 600 though, which I thought was interesting. Like a minute ago, but the team but suddenly the Brits are like, they're so overconfident, arrogant. It's like, well, it's like a huge mountain to climb. We still don't have anything to worry about. But Buffon's giving his pep talk. He's getting ready for their turn at bat, right? They're getting ready to do their thing. You got people chanting, right? And there's a scene that I really liked with the translator that works for the British that was helping Elizabeth. He's there at the game, and he has like a bullhorn where he's giving some updates, and he talks about a hit that leads to a four-run hit. And Russell runs over and just smacks him. In the chat, the crowd goes bonkers, right? So this dude starts chanting, abolish tax, right? This anti-tax thing, and the crowd goes crazy. I love that scene. I thought it was great. Anyway, the players are not really getting off to a good start. Half the team are out by the end of that day. You have like a silly run out. You have, one guy gets hit, the other guy sees the blood on his head. And then, it's just so many things happen. By the time you get to that end of the day, they've got some points on the board, but half the team is gone. They're already tired. They're getting demoralized. And then, you get into another song and prayer and that kind of thing. And I think it is really, 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 really good. This is where I really was like, because it's a comeback story, right? It's an underdog story because this is what these movies are, right? It's not like they're inventing the wheel from scratch, but what they are doing is allowing for a slower process for the comeback instead of just a miracle play, right? So when you get into it, like the next day, the injured player comes back. Ishmael, I think is his name. He comes back, right? So there is some other characters that are doing and helping to bring the game closer. It's not just a miracle thing. It's like there is still a lot of team. There's still a lot of building, and it's a slower process to get to it. And it comes down where they're within like 5. So Buffon needs 6 runs on this last ball. So when it happens, and there's an incredible celebration, and you see how the Brits respond, and you see Elizabeth coming over, but Buffon loves Guri, right? So you had a love triangle that didn't quite go maybe how you thought it might go. It actually went more like a traditional way, not like a Hollywood spin on it, which I liked very much. And then, of course, the emotional thing, because you've spent now, over 2 hours with these people, which is basically the equivalent of what, over 3 months, where they're suffering and they're dealing with the consequences of this drought. And then you see the dark rain clouds and you see the rain start, and you see them just boom with joy, and the multiple year drought is over, and you really feel something. It was very well done, I really will say. So, the epilogue is what you expect, right? Russell gets sent to Africa. The villagers are doing their thing, watching the Brits, move around. Elizabeth comes out to say farewell to him because she has a little thing for him, but she moves on with her life, going back to England. And the farmers are all like happy. There's rain. We're going to be prosperous. Life goes on. Of course, the narrator comes back in and tells us, Buvan and Guri get married, and the king comes, and you have all these things, and it's really, really, really done well. It deserves an Oscar nom because it was a really good film, as many of these films that have been recommended are. It didn't get passed over, and in large part because it is a Bollywood film, so it is a Northern Indian film. It's got the, even though it took place in other areas, in a remote area, and Aamir Khan had a different sort of reputation and approach to how he was going to market it. I think that also helped. But I will say this, like it's a Bollywood film, right? So the dance numbers and the songs, even though the lyrics and stuff move the story along, and a lot of them are fun to watch, the thing about the sound mixing is part of a contention for a lot of folks that are for us Americans. Like, you can just tell it's, you got studio sound and it's mixed. It's not the actor's voice. Things just don't sound quite right. And it is a little, like, it takes you out of the moment at time. The pacing in the first, hour and a half or so, it's very long and tedious. I'm not sure things could have been moved along a little bit faster, but they could have been moved along a little bit faster. Like, I don't know. I don't have something that I specifically made note of that I would cut, but it felt very slow. And also, to market this to Americans as a sports film or a sports drama, it's a little tough, right? Because it's a little tough. And it's cricket. We don't really have a big cricket thing here in our country. But I will say that it's a fine film. It's a fun film. And it's really, especially that last half of the film where you're into the actual game and you've been following people that don't even understand how to play, but they had natural skills. They had certain things. There's the great thing that Aamir Khan's character Bhuvan does is he's always saying, look, they may be playing for fun and entertainment. We're not. We're playing for our lives. And I think this is really at stake with the way the bet worked, the way everything played out. And I liked it very much. I really did enjoy it. I'm glad it was recommended to me, and I would put it in a very positive light. I don't know that I would put it in my elite rewatchable category as some of the other ones that are more action driven. But I wouldn't be opposed to watching it again if that's a fair assessment. That you guys can give me a little bit of grace on that. I also wasn't really aware of Aamir Khan's reputation and legacy when I did Three Idiots, because I had already reviewed Three Idiots. That's where I knew him from. So I didn't quite understand, he started as a child actor and this is his production company and all of that. I just, kind of got into things. And he's way better in this movie than Three Idiots, because Three Idiots, when you have some of those comedic elements, he's actually one of the weaker elements of the comedic execution in some of those scenes. And I do understand Three Idiots a little bit better, knowing he's the star. Like, he was really the big name. I didn't know that when I watched Three Idiots. I just took it on face value of what it was at the time. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Lagaan. That's my thoughts. And I know I've been behind on trying to do some of these because October into November become crazy for me. There's weather issues here in the state I live in America. We had some big storms that came through. I work a day job. I actually have a job, so that has had some demands that have been difficult to manage in the last few weeks. So October into November has been very difficult. So please bear with me. I love your recommendations. I had to create a little way of managing the list. I will be on vacation for about 10 days. So when you're catching this, I post this, you'll actually be catching it kind of after the fact. While I'm on vacation, I will hopefully be on to another project, another film to share with you when I get back. So those are my thoughts, and I am Pops, and I appreciate you even hanging out with me. So thank you.